G'day everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. So the AFL trade period and free agency kicks off in a few days time. A lot of fans, a lot of clubs are keen for the silly season to kick off, and I thought it'd be a great time to get some trade rumours or trade period content out on the channel. Now, as some people might know, instead of me just naming a random bunch of players like any old standard trade rumours sort of video, I like to go over instead club by club and name each AFL team's ideal trade targets, go through each club and just talk about their maybe list needs or their specific situations or who they could be targeting, just so you know every club gets their lick of the ice cream in terms of content in this video. And you know, it's human nature, every club wants new players, so yeah, thought it'd be a great idea to do this. Did obviously do this video last year, and I thought it'd be great to do again this season. So yeah, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you do go on to enjoy today's video, and let's get into it. So as always, we kick things off with these team videos in alphabetical order. The Adelaide Crows first up. Now, when compiling this list over the weekend, I felt that a key forward would definitely be on the radar for the Crows. Just, you know, Taylor Walker is turning 34 next year. They could go with some more key forwards and improve that depth, I feel, alongside the likes of course, 𝐓𝐴𝐿𝐴𝐿 to help him out maybe as a 1-2 punch attack. Of course, they also do have Fogarty and 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐴 as well as the other young key forward. So to improve that depth would be ideal. I had them having 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐴. He's definitely interested to head over potentially to the Adelaide Crows. And I also, funnily enough, over the weekend, I did put in Chris Burgess, as I did see that he was rumoured to leave the Suns, obviously the last 2 seasons for Gold Coast and the VFL. He's been bossing it, leading their goal scoring tally, and funnily enough, a few hours ago he has requested a trade to the Crows, so that probably maybe cancels out 𝐻𝐿 to Adelaide as well. Will they be able to get him to? Who knows? When you look at Adelaide's midfield, that could also be an area where they could improve. I personally like the look of Elijah Hollands, for example. He could be on the move to a Victorian club, but I think Hollands to Adelaide is a very good fit. I think especially as well when you look at Darren Burgess, one of the top trainers there is, you know, pretty much in the world. You know, what he's able to do is get players really fit, get them under a really good rehab program. Obviously, Hollands has had his injury problems with that ACL in his draft year. If he can get a player like Hollands really fit and he can show his full potential, he could be a great get for Adelaide and he could be a fine player. You know, he's an athletic player. I think he could fit in well in Adelaide's midfield and improve that area. Maybe they target some other young midfielders, maybe some likes from Collingwood. Carmichael's a South Australian, maybe he could move over to Adelaide. He's not really getting much opportunity in there. Or maybe even someone like a Finn Macrae. Maybe Collingwood would probably prefer to keep a player like him, but maybe poaching some more young midfielders could be an area to go with Adelaide. Moving on now to the Brisbane Lions, and they are probably going to be a team that will be pretty quiet in the trade period. You do feel they had a lot of acquisitions last year, and look, I think they probably have one of the strongest lists out of any team in the competition, so it will be pretty limited, but definitely one of the most attractive players to the Lions is Tom Doedee. I think the other day ago he did announce he's preferring Brisbane to Collingwood and a few other clubs, but Doedee would be a great fit. He won't be playing the first half of 2023, of course, with that ACL, but with a very strong list like Brisbane, they can probably afford to have that. But yeah, Doedee is a very competitive player. He is undersized, but he's very good in the air. He's good one-on-one. And I think for Brisbane, it would be a great fit just to continue to really bolster that back six and allow Harris Andrews to do his thing. And apart from that, it is still pretty limited for the Brisbane Lions. I mean, if they want to continue to add a bit of talent towards their forward half and a bit of outside game, I mean, Jack Billings is on the move potentially to a new club. Maybe a fresh start up in the Sunshine State for him could be the move. And also, finally, 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐿, there was a few rumours with him maybe going across the highway to Brisbane, potentially, you know, another area where they could maybe improve a bit of their depth with, you know, Daniher now starting to age up a bit. And potentially, there's also rumours that Tom Fullerton could be on his way out. So maybe 𝐻𝐿 could be a depth fit for Brisbane. Now moving on to the Carlton Footy Club, a team that's definitely going to be interesting to watch next year. What list changes will they have this year? It's a pretty interesting side to look at, I think, the Blues. I think off the bat, their spine is probably one of the strongest on paper in the competition. So they can continue to keep on adding talent to their role players or a bit of their outside game, I think. Elijah Hollands is definitely one of the highly rumoured players to head down to join his brother. And I think it could be a great fit, improving that outside game a wee bit. They could also go with some more just X-factor forward of centre. Jade Gresham is definitely more rumoured to go to Essendon, but at the time of recording, nothing's confirmed, so I'll add him into the list for Carlton. I think he could be a great fit. And even, again, Jack Billings, there are rumours he is on the out, so maybe him to Carlton could be another destination if he does get his body right, because he hasn't really been able to show his full potential. And another probably left field decision here, but could add to the depth. Well, they have some great depth options and young players, of course, likes of Jackson Binns is definitely one from Carlton, so I think they're good there, but maybe just adding another one, for example, someone like a Trent Bianco from Collingwood. Earlier this year, he was rumoured, he's out of contract, he could be on the way to another club, and maybe an opportunity at Carlton could come down his way, so maybe a bit of a depth addition there for the Blues with an outside half forward sort of player, or midfielder forward of Trent Bianco. Now moving on to the Collingwood Football Club, the premiers for 2023. The big question for them is, will they be active this trade period, or maybe will they be a little bit quiet this year, be happy with the, sit in their hands. They still do have a fantastic list, of course, and maybe go big in next year's trade period. Maybe target an Aaron Norton or a Logan McDonald, one of those big key forwards they desire, because there's not really much on the table this year, especially from the Pies perspective. Tom Doedee, I personally feel would be a great fit for Collingwood, but again, things are sort of leaning towards the Brisbane side of things. But Doedee, for me, would be a perfect Jeremy Howe replacement. They can always improve in a bit more depth, I think, in their key defensive stocks. Charlie Dean's a great young key defender on paper, but he just keeps on getting injured. Even Murphy as well, he's having a few injury problems. And Tom Doedee, for me, he has similar qualities to Howe. Undersized, good in the air, can be good on by foot too. Now, a left field decision here. I did hear earlier this year that he could potentially be linked to a few Victorian clubs, and for me, I think Collingwood, why not just continue to add to that excitement and that pizzazz they possess in their forward half. Liam Ryan, I think, this one, left field decision, but if he does get his body right, that still has potential to get back to his best. They could maybe get him on the cheap. Liam Ryan could potentially maybe be an option, very, very unorthodox call there. In the midfield as well, they maybe could add to that area, Reef McInnes, Finn McRae, a few young mids in there, obviously Taylor Adams and Pendlebury, side bottom getting on. If Devon Robinson doesn't want to go to West Coast, if he wants to go Victorian club, I can't see why Collingwood maybe not make an offer. I think he could be another decent option to add to their depth in the midfield for Collingwood, and more interceptors behind the ball, more defensive depth. An area where I like the look of is 𝐓𝐴 𝐼𝐴 from the Western Bulldogs. I think he has been rumoured to maybe go to Collingwood. I think it would be a great option. He's shown some decent glimpses when he has been able to play in the first. Obviously an athletic player, good in the air. So 𝐓𝐴 𝐼𝐴 to Collingwood could be another ideal target. Now moving on to the Essendon Football Club, definitely will be one of the most active teams in this trade period. The last few years have been close from landing some top talent. Those rumours of De Goey, especially Josh Dunkley the last few years or so, but I think now's the time to land a few big plays potentially. In terms of big, that's definitely a question mark. What is confirmed, though, is Ben McKay will be heading to Bomberland. Now, obviously, there's a lot of questions around him. Is he good enough? He obviously is a bit injury-prone as well. How will he go in terms of a highly paid wage as well? They're saying around 800k. There's also rumours saying he will be he's been offered under 800k, which will mean North won't get pick 3. So that's still up for speculation, but McKay will be going to Essendon. Now, I think he is a good interceptor. I think in a bit of a better back 6, he will be able to flourish. And it is hard for key defenders to look good in a bit of a bad side like North the last few years or so. So I think McKay, alongside the likes of Ridley and 𝐼𝐴, he could free up, especially Ridley. He could be an important stopper for Essendon. Also, Jade Gresham is most likely on his way to Bomberland too, so just more X-factor forward to centre, something that Essendon do need, and maybe under a new environment, Jade Gresham could really hit his potential, hit his full straps. Todd Goldstein as well, also going to be going to Essendon, that is confirmed, which is a great acquisition. I think he will be probably playing for another year or two, you do feel, and a very underrated player too. I still think he's capable of doing the full rucking time. Obviously, Phillips being retired, they could improve that area of the rucks, and maybe a bit of a 1-2 punch with Draper, or a bit of a mentor to Draper as well. I think that's a good get. And as well, you always look at Essendon, they could always improve their midfield depth, especially the big body type of plays, the grunt plays. James Harmes, I think, fits that mould. He's still up in the air and where he could go maybe next year. Maybe he doesn't stay at Melbourne. I think Harmes, not really big body midfielder, but as I say, he sort of plays like that, and he's a bit of a grunt mid too, so maybe him to Essendon could be a good fit. Next club up is the Freo Dockers, and in terms of rumours via the media, there isn't really too much heading down Fremantle's way, but I think the two biggest ones is definitely Jeremy Sharp and Tyler Brockman. Brockman could instead maybe go to West Coast, could be a better fit there in terms of personnel issues they do have over at West Coast, but I think Brockman could be, I think Kane Cornes said it the other day, and I agree with it, he could be one of the most valuable assets or valuable pickups out of the trade period this year, because he does possess a lot of X factor adding into Freo's small forward mix. I think that is quite underrated. Sam 𝐓𝐿𝐼𝐶𝐞 𝐎𝐿𝐼, very underrated player, and maybe a player like Brockman could be the successor to Sonny Walters. So I think that could be a good pickup should Freo get him. Jeremy Sharp as well, looks like he's on his way back home to WA. Now there's a chance he could be delisted by the Sun, so he could be picked up as a delisted free agent for absolutely nothing. So that saves a bit of draft capital for Freo. Athletic player, can play on the outside, and I think when looking at the Dockers, they could always add to sort of that wing sort of outside game a little bit better. So a few other players I like the look of. As I say again, Jack Billings could be a player on the move. Obviously he can show a bit of stuff as that half forward or medium forward. If he's able to keep his body right, he could be a great fit for any club. And Fremantle could be a destination. A fresh chapter across the other side of the country could be an ideal destination for Jack Billings. I'll also throw in Trent Bianca as well, looking for a new club, could be an area for him to go to. And Ollie Lord as well, he's rumoured to go to a new club. Port would love to keep him, but Fremantle are rumoured to also pick him up and acquire his services. A good young key forward, has shown a few glimpses this year and could be a great key forward to add to the likes of 𝐼𝐼𝐼𝐿𝐼. And one final player for Fremantle, Denver Granger-Brass, might as well throw him into the mix. Now, there's rumours that he's going to be staying at the Hawks. There's rumours that he's going to be leaving the Hawks. And if he's leaving, it's back home to WA most likely. And I think Fremantle is a club that would love to snap him up. Early draft pick from 2020. I think he can show a bit of talent. And then within a new environment of Fremantle back home, could be the perfect place for him. Versatile player, can play forward and also can play in defence as that key position player. Definitely adds into the depth for Fremantle quite nicely, should he move. Now I move on to the Geelong Cats, and definitely a team that will be one of the most quietest in this trade period. Pretty much they only have pick 7 and I think a pick in like the 60s. So in terms of trades and draft capital, they're not really going to be doing much this year unless they will trade their futures. This definitely probably most likely won't be happening, but in terms of the actual title of this video, most ideal or the perfect trade target, I'll just put it in anyway. Shaun Dux. There's always a speculation of him moving out of Fremantle, away from WA. And if it's a team to move to, it's definitely Geelong. I think he would be a great fit as a ruckman. Just would be the perfect target. But I feel like Geelong are definitely still content with Toby Conway and his development as the young ruckman. So definitely this most likely will not be happening at all. Maybe improvement to the midfield potentially for the Cats. Jack Bytells was delisted from St Kilda. I think he's a good player, good big-bodied midfielder, so maybe he could be to a new club next year. Maybe the Cats to improve their sort of young stocks in that midfield could be an area with the likes of course, Jai Clark and Ted Closey, Mitch Nevitt, those kind of types. Now, Nick Haynes has also been another player that is rumoured to go away from GWS, because they are rumoured that they're going to be getting 𝐓𝐿𝐼𝐼𝐿 and maybe Nick Haynes. He's been the sub a lot of times for the Giants this year. He could be a good fit for Geelong too, just to improve their defensive stability, because their defence did let them down a little bit this year. And also maybe a young key forward they could go for, again similar to Fremantle situation, could go with Ollie Lord, a key forward, a young key forward. They also do have Shannon Neal as well, but Jeremy Cameron and Tom Hawkins getting on, Lord could be a good development and depth option for the Cats. Now I move on to the Gold Coast Suns. Again, similar to Geelong and a few other clubs, definitely will be one of the most quietest teams in this trade period. So pretty much I can only include speculative decisions here and maybe a few free agent options with Gold Coast, because we all know pretty much all their attention is focusing on the draft with their talent they do have in the academy. But 3 players they do have is Tom Doedee, 𝐼𝐻𝐿 and Nathan Broad, all 3 defenders. Doedee has actually been rumoured to go to the Suns from what I have been seeing, and Doedee would be a great fit because I think when you look at Gold Coast situation, they always are in need of some more defensive stability. I do feel 𝐻𝐿 had a breakout year, but unfortunately did go down injured. And they also, you know, the likes of Charlie Ballard and Collins was under heavy dress this year. And I think a player, one of these 3 players, obviously we know 𝐻𝐿 and Broad, some good intercepting plays. 𝐻𝐿 joining the club, maybe they can poach one of these Tigers, but just an interceptor or a good solid third tall option to really, you know, maybe allow 𝐻𝐿 maybe to, you know, roam free a little bit more, because we all know what we did see this year. He's a great rebounder. I just think improving that defensive half is an ideal area for Gold Coast, and these are more speculative picks, but yeah, one of these 3 would be a very ideal trade target. Maybe next year potentially 𝐻𝐿 or Broad could be on their way to Gold Coast, given they will have a bit more draft capital next year, and I think one of these players are out of contract next year. Now moving on to the GWS Giants. Again, not really too many rumours heading down their way, but 𝐼𝐻𝐿 as of late has been rumoured to go to GWS to join his brother, of course, of Harry, and I don't mind this selection at all. 𝐼𝐻𝐿 didn't really play many games for Adelaide this year and could definitely be on the move. He's a versatile player, can play down forward, or they are looking, from articles, they're looking for 𝐼𝐻𝐿 to be played in defence, so that could definitely improve their stability there. Apart from that, not really too much. There was rumoured early in the year that 𝐼𝐻𝐿 could be on the move. I don't mind the move to GWS. They're saying that Matt Flynn could be on the way out, but maybe 𝐻𝐿 with a 1-2 punch with the likes of course, Briggs could be an area to look at too. Also, you know, Jesse Hogan's only going to get older, so yeah, maybe 𝐻𝐿 could be an opportunity to go there. And, you know, GWS don't really have many list needs. From what we did see this year, they're looking like a very strong list with a good draft capital, so they will be definitely heavily invested in the draft this year, but maybe just keep on improving in that sort of outside game with that pace and run and carry. Hugo Ralph-Smith was rumoured to go there last year. Maybe he could be rumoured to go to GWS again this year. So a bit of a left field call there. But yeah, Ralph-Smith could be maybe an area for GWS, and he could be maybe potentially heading up to the Northern States. Now move on to the Hawks. As we know, a very young team and definitely will be very invested in the draft this year, but they have been close with acquiring a few players. Obviously they were unlucky, or were in the box seat, or were in the race, to land 𝐸𝐼, but were unable to, as he's now off to Essendon. But we all know Massimo D'Ambrosio has requested a trade to Hawthorn, which I don't mind at all, because he's adding to that young crop of sort of those few players they have at the club, some players that can run and carry and are good by foot. You know, Josh Weddle and Seamus Mitchell, a few other of those young players. I think Massimo D'Ambrosio, does fit that mold quite nicely. Mabi Achola as well, they're heavily linked, the Hawks are heavily linked to him. I think that would be a very ideal choice. You could see this year with Hawthorn, especially when Mitch Lewis is out of the side, 𝐬𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿 just wasn't really doing enough, and obviously him being out of the club now to Richmond, I think Chol could definitely come in and fill in that void of that second key forward, or that 1-2 punch alongside Mitch Lewis. Also a few left field calls here. Nick Haynes. Again, if he's out of the Giants, I think Hawthorn could be a good destination. A veteran player, good in the air, all-Australian talent as well. I think he could be a nice older sort of player to join Hawthorn with their young defence, and definitely help out 𝐼𝐻𝐿 as well. And again, Liam Ryan, he was one of those, I think Hawthorn was one of these clubs mid-year that were rumoured to pick up Liam Ryan, but with Brockman out of the club, they are obviously dying for that 𝐼𝐻𝐿 replacement. They will probably get that with probably selecting Nick Watson or Zane Dersma in the draft. But Liam Ryan, again, if he's out of the West Coast Eagles, maybe a fit to the Hawks. Could be a little cheeky trade target for Hawthorn. Now moving on to the Melbourne Football Club. Now I have to say right off the bat, I think, in terms of list needs, what they are just dying out for is just that star key forward. I think a lot of Melbourne fans are definitely interested in Aaron Naughton. I've seen a lot of speculative calls and trade rumours floating around with Naughton to Melbourne, but it looks like it's not going to be happening, as Naughton's play agent did state that he's 100% going to be staying at the Western Bulldogs. But they do have the draft capital to do a lot of things and maybe attract some big names. But I just think this year they're not not really going to get much in terms of key forwards. But if they are looking at a key forward, maybe Tom Fullerton from Brisbane, 24 years of age, not really getting much of a go in Brisbane colours, and maybe a move down to Melbourne to, just be thrown around in that key forward mix could be ideal. But when you do really look at the key forward mix, you've got Joel Smith, you've got Van Roy, and you've got Jefferson they took last year. They do have players that look promising, and I don't think their key forward area is as bad as what people think. I just think you've got to give it time. And, Harry Petty was out injured. A few players were unavailable in the final series. So, I think they will eventually get that right. They could always improve, I feel, Melbourne, a bit of leg speed and a bit of foot skills on the outside. Maybe someone like an 𝐼𝙗𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿 from Gold Coast could be a fit potentially for Melbourne on the way down to a Victorian club. If it's not Carlton, why not Melbourne? Young player, yet to really fully hit his potential, maybe down to a bit of a better side of Melbourne could really allow him to hit his straps in a new environment as well. It could be a potential player, a bit of a speculative one there. Also, they are linked to Matt Flynn. I think this would be a good fit, considering Max Gawn is now turning, 32 years old next year. Pretty much they don't really have much other ruck backups. We all know that Grundy's out of the door now of Melbourne. I think Flynn could be a good ideal target. He's third in line now in the ruck situations over at GWS. He needs to leave the club. He's also rumoured to go to West Coast. I think it would be a great depth pickup for Melbourne. And of course, they are rumoured, that it is confirmed that Shaun Dux will be on the way to Melbourne. So that's another exciting player that shows a bit of X factor that could be adding into Melbourne's forward half with the likes of 𝐓𝐴𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿, as long as they alongside the other pressure forwards, like of course of Charlie Spargo and of course 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿. Now I move on to the North Melbourne Footy Club, another side that is young and inexperienced, but definitely will be heavily invested in the draft. But we all know that there are actually a few players that are interested or are confirmed to go to North Melbourne. One being Dylan Stephens from the Swans. Didn't really get much of a crack at it, or did get his opportunities eventually, but just couldn't stay in the team, probably because of the high standards of probably of the better list of the Swans. They obviously prefer the likes of Gordon and McInerney and Braden Campbell along the wings. So yeah, I think it's a good move for the likes of Dylan Stephens. Could, with a new destination, new environment, could really help him. Top 5 pick from, I think, the 2019 draft. They also are rumoured of Zach Fisher moving to North Melbourne. He's wanting to find more opportunity, so I think North Melbourne could be a great fit, just adding to that outside game a wee bit. Can also play half back, can also play as a small 40 as a versatile player, can play on the outside a wee bit. With Todd Goldstein announcing that he won't be playing in North Melbourne colours next year, and Cherry, let's be honest, I think when watching North games this year, he didn't look too great. I'm not really confident in him being, the future ruck from what he did show. Maybe a delisted free agent pickup of Brent Teagle could be an option for North Melbourne. They are also linked with 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿 coming across. If it's not Hawthorn, maybe North Melbourne could be a fit. That's a potential move on the cards. And finally, their key position stocks, especially in the defensive area, is quite limited. Ben McKay out the door. Pretty much Aiden Cor's our only genuine key defender that is, over 195 centimetres or something that I did read. So an area to definitely fill in the void. Maybe someone like, I was actually going to put in Joel Hamling, but now he's rumoured or almost confirmed to go to Sydney, so he's off the cards potentially. Maybe James Stewart that did play for the Essendon Footy Club. Or another one I do like is 𝐵𝐵𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻. I did put them in the Collingwood category, but I think him at North Melbourne could be a good fit because they do have a lot of key position players, the Bulldogs, and maybe I think it would be a great fit for North Melbourne, just an intercepting player, athletic player. It could be, I think, not a bad move for the Kangas. Now moving on to the Port Adelaide Footy Club, there are already a few players that have obviously requested a trade to Port Adelaide, two of them being Brandon 𝐸𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻 and 𝐸𝐻𝐼𝐻 𝐸𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻. I think will be great acquisitions in my opinion for Port Adelaide. They're in desperate need of some more defensive stability. I mean, obviously looking in their second half of the year, Tom Cleary was out of the year with a long-term injury. 𝐿𝐼𝐻 was doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and pretty much Trent McKenzie was playing on one leg in the wars, injured all the time. So yeah, I think that's some important stability added. 𝐸𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐻, I think he's a bit of an underrated player, to be honest, but there are rumours that Port Adelaide are giving up their future first potentially for him, which you just think is way too much for a player like 𝐸𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻. So the questions are, how will they get these players, because they don't have their first round of this year, because they obviously was a part of the Horn Francis deal. But yeah, 𝐸𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻 I think could be not a bad player. As we all know, Radaglia as well is on his way to Port Adelaide, and he's an athletic player. He's good in the air, so I think if things click, he could be an important part of their back six. Jordan Sweet as well, another ruckman that is requested trade to Port Adelaide. So that adds to their mix of a few ruckmen that they do have over there, which does add speculation, maybe the question of is someone like a Hayes or Lysette potentially leaving Port Adelaide. But yeah, Sweet showed great VFL stats for Footscray this year, so I think he could be a good player within the next few years for Port Adelaide. And also a few other left field decisions here. Ivan Soldo as well was rumoured to leave the Tigers. Could be potential a landing destination for Port Adelaide, just to improve that sort of ruck and key forward stocks. And also final one, I'll add him into the mix here because it just fits list needs wise. Nick Hayes, again, I don't know if he's actually leaving GWS, but he is rumoured to. But I think a player like Haynes, an experienced player, good in the air, I think could be a good acquisition and a good area to improve their defensive half for Port Adelaide. Nick Haynes. Now moving on to the Richmond Tigers, definitely will be one of the most quietest teams in this trade period. Obviously, they did give up a lot of draft capital, especially part of the Hopper trade from last year. So not really too much, but we all know right off the bat, 𝐓𝐿𝐴 𝐐𝐿𝐼 will request a trade to Richmond. So that's not a bad move, I don't think. Obviously Lynch is pretty much almost done if his body continues to really fail him. Obviously Riewoldt out the door. So yeah, I think not a bad acquisition there for Richmond. Can he show a bit better form in new colours for Richmond? That will be the question. James Harmes as well, I've added in as well for the Tigers. Could be maybe not a bad option for Richmond, just to add a bit more midfield grunt in there. I'll also add in as well Paddy Dow in terms of what they would desire. I think Paddy Dow is not a bad play. I think what Richmond are lacking is a bit of leg speed and a bit of all that whatnot in the midfield. So Paddy Dow does possess a bit of speed around the stoppage. So I think him in Richmond colours could be a great fit. And again, I'll throw him in like I have in the last few clubs. Liam Ryan, again, maybe if he's on his way to Victoria, maybe Richmond could be interested. Could be a potential sneaky option to go to the Tigers, who knows. Now move on to the St Kilda Footy Club. Last year, disappointingly, they weren't very active in the trade period, but this year you expect they will be a little bit more. So obviously right off the bat, we all know Liam Henry is confirmed to go to the Saints. There still is obviously all the talks on how they're going to get that deal done. We'll actually have to give away a first round pick to acquire services. Fremantle with playing that hardball, as we did see a few weeks ago, or was announced around a month ago now. And also there is questions on who they might give up to give away. Maybe someone like a Jack Billings, as I said earlier, could be out of his way out of the club. But in terms of other plays, Paddy Dow is the Saints are the favourites to land. Paddy Dow, I think, again, just similar as I said to Richmond, they lack a bit of variety. I think in the midfield they are one pace to still think in the midfield as well for the Saints. So I think Paddy Dow is good enough. I think he's a good enough AFL quality footballer, and I think him and the Saints could be a nice fit. Dylan Shiel as well. Now I don't think this would be necessarily a great get for the Saints necessarily, because he's 31, he's injury prone, but I'm just putting him in here anyway because he is rumoured to go to the Saints. But if he can keep his body right, he could be another player added into that midfield mix. And considering that the Saints' key defensive options is an interesting one in my opinion. Dougal Howard, I don't know what's happening with him. Is he going to be part of Ross Lyon's future plans? Apparently he isn't. Is Zane Cordy going to be good enough as their key defender to go alongside Callum 𝐼𝐿𝐴? How will Josh Battle hold up? I think, there are rumours that Darcy Gardner could maybe potentially be leaving the Brisbane Lions. So I think in terms of needs and in terms of a fit, I think Gardner at the Saints wouldn't be too bad at all. I think he's, obviously we saw his prelim in his grand final. Pretty good. Maybe a cheeky one for the Saints. Darcy Gardner down to Moorabbin. Who knows? Now move on to the Sydney Swans, and they will definitely be, well, from what we've been seeing in the media, probably one of the most active teams in this trade period. We all know about the rumours. Brodie Grundy is pretty much confirmed to head down to Sydney. I mean, if you look at their list, they've got some great young talent. They've got a few areas that they probably do need to address, especially a ruckman and also in the defensive area. But yeah, they've been crying out for a elite ruckman for so long now. With Hickey out the door, the question is, will Adams actually be their true number one ruckman? That's still up in the air. But with Grundy at the Swans, it's a perfect fit. Questions are, though, will Grundy get back to his All-Australian best? When he was the solo ruck for Melbourne last year, he had some great numbers, so I think he's going to be a great fit for Sydney. James Jordan as well has requested a trade to Sydney as well, so that's just improving their midfield depth, which I personally feel they do need to build, Sydney. So, Jordan, I think, he was a great player in 2021 as part of their premiership run for Melbourne, but has dropped off a little bit and has been unable to get into that midfield for Melbourne, so him at the Swans could be a nice fit. As well, they have been rumoured with Paddy Dow, similar to James Jordan, just improving that midfield depth. I think they need that in an underball winner, and I think that's somewhere where Paddy Dow could be a good fit at Sydney. And also, well, across the weekend I was actually compiling this, and I did put down Joel Hamling as an area where I think the Swans could maybe pick up a key defender, sort of, you know, a veteran like a Joel Hamling. I did see across the weekend that he's yet to accept that 1-year deal from Fremantle, and a few hours ago it is almost confirmed now that Joel Hamling is going to Sydney. So there you go. Definitely another player to put in the video, as again, you know, Paddy McCartan retiring, Dane Reapy getting older. Hamling is 31, but I think, you know, when he's fully fit, he's not a bad player, so could be a nice fit for Sydney. Now moving on to the West Coast Eagles, and obviously we all know definitely a team that is more invested in the draft rather than the trade period, but there are a few players that could be heading over to the Eagles. Devon Robertson, the Eagles are heavy favourites to land him. The question is, will he stay at Brisbane? That's still up in the air, but I think for West Coast, I'm pretty sure I actually did put Devon Robertson in this video last year, so I'm almost recycling this one and putting him in again, but it's just such a perfect fit. He's Western Australian, he was rated highly in his draft year, and they're just in desperate need of more talent, of more young talent, and I think West Coast is a perfect place for Robertson. You know, you throw him in with the likes of Ginbey and a few of those other young midfielders too, so it's a good fit. 𝘼𝐵𝐻𝐿𝐿 too. Tyler Brockman as well, he's requesting a trade back to WA. I think he's a better, as I said back in the Fremantle segment, I think he's a better fit at West Coast, just given, you know, the desperate needs they just need across everywhere across the field. Jamie Cripps getting older, so Brockman could be, you know, a great X-factor player. Obviously Sam Petrevski did get delisted, so Brockman could fill in the void nicely. And also the Eagles are rumoured to pick up Matt Flynn across from the Giants. Would be a good fit, I do feel, for the Eagles. Even though it's intriguing, I've really liked the improvement of Bailey Williams this year, but again, just adding to that depth I think is a necessity for West Coast, so could be a nice depth option there. And as well, if he's good enough, could be a nice 1-2 punch alongside Bailey Williams or even Jack Darling. So yeah, I like the fit for Matt Flynn at the Eagles. And now for the final club in this video, the Western Bulldogs. Probably one of the few teams in the competition where we haven't really heard of many, you know, black and white rumours heading down their way. But you know, a few players that I've put in here, maybe off the bat, Nick Caulfield. He is rumoured to leave potentially the Saints, so the Bulldogs could be not a bad landing spot for him. If he's able to get his body right, he could, you know, turn into a nice spot in a new environment as a running defender that he is of Caulfield. High draft pick as well from the last few years or so. As well, that can always improve just their intercept game and their key defensive stocks. Another oldish player sort of, but again, I'll throw in Darcy Gardner. He's a little bit of rumours and speculation he could maybe leave the Lions, and I think the Bulldogs would be a great fit for him. As well, Hunter Clark, another one from the Saints, that could potentially be on the move in, though I have heard he's more likely to stay, but him just adding into the midfield depth for the Doggies. And again, I think for the Bulldogs, more talent forward to centre is a need as well, so maybe a Jack Billings. You know, again, as I said, for the few other clubs, if you can get his body right, if he wants to stay in Victoria, maybe the Doggies could be a good spot for him, and maybe can show his full potential over there at Footscray. So everyone, I know a long ass video this one was, but you know, as I say on the channel, always like to chew the fat about the footy. So yeah, there's every AFL club's most ideal trade targets heading into this trade period. Feel free to comment down below and let me know what you did think about every AFL club's trade targets. Would you know, did I miss a few players? Maybe if you're a fan of a particular club, would you also maybe target another specific player I didn't go over? Always love to hear your fellas' thoughts down below, of course, in the comments. But yeah, apart from that, fellas, that's pretty much it from me. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did go to enjoy. Pretty keen for the trade period, and free agency should be a good one. And apart from that, I will talk to you later. See you later, fellas.